Well, good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. I'll call to order the August 28th, 2019 Deschutes County Board of Commissioners meeting. If you'll please join us with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Well, welcome everyone. Thanks for coming today. Looks like we have our first item is citizen input, and it looks like we have a number of people wanting to give citizen input, which we'll do now. If you want to give citizen input, you need to, then these would be on issues not on the agenda, so at this point. So you fill out one of the blue forms and turn it into Sharon. I've got a number of them here I can start with. Thank you. So the first one will be Carol Gothy, is that right? Okay, so you want to just come up and take a position, and then after that we'll have Sue Abeline.
Good morning.
And just so you know, we usually allow 3 minutes per person on this, so.
In front of you, there should be a packet. Looks like this. My name is Carol Gotha, and I live in the south part of Deschutes County in Water Wonderland 1 on the Deschutes River. My neighbors are here today from Water Wonderland, River Meadows, and Forest Acres as well, and some that couldn't attend have signed a petition in the back to show their support. Specifically, what we're talking about is wanting to close the hunting between Maxwell Bridge and Forest Acres. Living in this area has taught us a lot about safety and prevention because we live with the possibility of a fire on a regular basis, and we do whatever is necessary to prevent them. We take measures to minimize in order to keep people, our properties, and our forests safe. However, there's one threat that we live with for several months each year that's truly an accident ready to happen. Specifically, I'm talking about the conflict of waterfowl hunting near residential neighborhoods, near the forest trails, and along the river itself. The conflicts have escalated greatly with the outdated hunting boundaries that were established in 1999, over 20 years ago. So in the packets, you'll find a map, and these are those hunting zones. And they're marked in red, and then in the larger map, you can see they're also marked in red. Now on this map, it lists General Patch Bridge as one of the points of reference. That's no longer there, hasn't even been there since 2004. And it does not list Maxwell Bridge, which was built in 2008. So in the packet, the rest of the things that you will find are an outline of our main concerns, the maps, articles, pictures, and testimonials. So look at the map and the photos to understand these bizarre natures. And anybody who's using the trails in the river is truly unsafe during hunting season. One very active trail begins directly across from 2 campgrounds and a public boat launch, and it's simply an invitation to come into the forest. There are several trails that enter into trailheads from Forest Acres, and all of these trails interconnect and take you right through hunting zones. Then, of course, there are all the people who fish, boat, and float the river. They're all unsafe during this time. Activities have increased on the river each year, and they're now year-round as more people have pushed out of the city to recreate. We're not anti-hunting, we are pro-safety, but obviously hunting in a residential and recreational area simply don't mix. We urge you to close the boundaries between Maxwell Bridge and Forest Acres.
Thanks, perfect timing. I have a couple questions. So on our map, I don't see Forest Acres. So is that where Beaver Drive is, or?
Yeah, it is the farthest red mark on the map, towards the bottom.
In that oval, you mean, or I'm looking at the map, this small map.
Oh, the small one, okay,
Yeah,
let me
just-
also. refer
I've got
to
the
that.
big one too, but this
Yeah,
is
it's,
more
and it's
specific.
actually, that shows you that Maxwell Bridge is not listed in that.
Yeah, that
But
shows it.
here, yes, so if you look here, this is the area where Water Wonderland is.
Mm-hmm.
This is the area where Forest Acres is. So people hike starting from here, and they'll hike all the way, you can hike all the way to Lapine State Park if you want to.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how long. But in these areas right here, this is where there's hunting allowed. And people, you can't be seen from the trail necessarily, and nor the river, because there's blind spots. So while they're shooting, they could be shot.
Is there trails on both sides of the river
No,
through
just
there?
on the one.
Which
Just
side is it
the
on?
hunting side, which would be on the left-hand side.
The west side of the river? Okay. And just because we're going to have some other speakers on this, and it looks like the two areas have Forest Service land on both sides of the river. That's what makes them unique, I guess, from other areas, or is that?
Yes,
I
that's.
assume that might be why the U.S. Forest Service owns both sides of the river. Okay. Any questions?
Just acknowledging, have you been able to research the authority of Deschutes County to do this non-shooting zone on the federal land? I think that's kind of the conundrum that we've been in.
Yeah, it is, Tony. Thank you for asking that. We have been bounced around, and I think somebody else is going to speak to that. But yes, we have tried now for years, and we just keep getting ping-ponged around. And so that's why we're back here at your invitation, so,
Yeah.
yeah.
And maybe somebody else is the right person to ask, but if you don't know this, but how long a parcel or distance of the river is the upper circle, and then how long is the lower circle?
Well, this part I do kind of know. It's
Okay.
probably about 4 miles, maybe, no, probably 3. Was that sound right?
Well, there's mile markers actually.
But
Yeah.
I'm just saying the part that allows hunting, is it the upper one's smaller than the lower
Oh.
one? Is it a half mile of
It's
of
probably
hunting, or?
a quarter mile. I'm not good with distances.
So if anybody knows, that's just something.
Probably, I think, a quarter mile,
find
and the
out.
other one then is a larger stretch. But the trails go right along them.
Mm-hmm.
It's, I mean, that's how they access the hunting as well.
And if anyone else knows more specific, I'm just curious, just the dimension of the area, so, good. Commissioner Dare, any questions?
We did hear about this when we were at the Sun River Library that day.
Yes.
And I believe somebody mentioned Ducks Unlimited, that they have that area posted.
They do, and in your packet, you'll find a picture where, and it's, I believe it's in there. Anyway, I've got one on my phone, because I just took it yesterday. But yeah, they have a sign, it's tilting a bit. It totally goes unheeded. I mean, it's like, that's kind of the trouble, is that these hunters have become very irresponsible. They don't even respect the Ducks Unlimited sign, who probably is their biggest advocate. You know, and I think other people are going to speak to that, but if you want me to give you just a quick overview, I can, because, or you can see the pictures.
Well, we'll see the pictures. Yeah, well, why don't we continue? It sounds like we've got a number of other speakers, and somebody else can touch on that, but,
Sure.
yeah.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Carol?
So Sue Abilene, that's right. And then Kate Jones will be after her.
I as well live in the Water Wonderland 1 area. And I want to just briefly have you look at Section 3, the articles from the Bend Bulletin. And I was given this article, it's titled, "No Shooting Zone to be Expanded." And we are now the people that are, we're now the citizens expressing concerns that it talks about in this article. And we're now the residents complaining to all the agencies that we know of to contact. We're now the homeowners, the taxpayers watching all this damage and recklessness that it describes in this article. And we are watching it many things happen just from our yards and our living rooms. And our serene setting is greatly interrupted. The proximity of residents is just too close. So fast forward now. This article is dated February 4th, 2009.
I saw that. I thought,
And
oh my gosh,
it's-
10 years ago.
Did you? Yeah. And so here we are, and this article is describing us and where we're at. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sue.
So Kate Jones, and then Dwayne Williams.
Hi, good morning. Kate Jones. I live on Big River Drive in Water Wonderland 1. I'm a registered voter, a full-time resident of Deschutes County, and really enjoy our community. I feel that being a part of our community makes me responsible to help keep it as safe as possible for everyone and everything, kids, pets, homes, forests, and waterways. My question today is about jurisdiction of the areas we're discussing. As Carol stated, we have prepared and presented an extensive package that includes safety issues, photos, testimonials, and historical information. The need for safety has been clearly established. We are here to be part of the solution. The first step of the solution seems clear. What agency or agencies have jurisdiction? Why is this so murky and elusive? We have been referred back and forth between Forest Service, Department of Agriculture, the Deschutes County Sheriff, the County Commissioners, ODFW, and BLM. Emails, phone calls, attempts at meetings and site visits are not followed up. Answers to our inquiries and requests have been routinely evaded, delayed, or brushed aside. Sort of a pat on the head attitude like, you don't need to make a fuss, or even veiled dangers. It's legal, and the hunters are really going to fight back. These are unacceptable responses. I expect better of our elected officials and agency representatives. Again, I ask that you help us be a part of the solution by giving us direction to the appropriate processes and agencies at the very least. We are finding huge community support for the shooting zone closure and plan to pursue the issue vigorously until the solution is found. Thank you.
Thank you. So Dwayne Williams, and then Donna Harris. Morning.
Yeah, socially, I go by my middle name, which is Kermit, and everything. I live just a little bit off this, north of this area, on the other side of the highway, the South Century Drive. It's called River Meadows, and I walk this path probably every week, and have for 13 years. And one of the things that I see as evidence, you got this picture of a typical blind that we see on this, along this path. By the way, this path is just over a mile long. I walk it with my GPS unit. And so from the forest, or from the Big River Campground down to Forest Lane is just over a mile on the path. Airline, it would probably be less than a mile. But anyway, from time to time, I see signs shot up, like you've got a picture of this sign. Somebody had a sign here for hunters, please respect by cleaning up shotgun shell casings, cigarette butts, wrappers, containers, beer cans, and I see these a lot, and garbage and so forth. And some hunter has decided that's his evidence for what he wants to do with that sign. He shoots it and so forth. Here's a picture of a typical blind. We've had trouble with blinds, and the law says that you're supposed to take the blinds down after you use them. Well, we've seen the blinds up for a long period of time. This picture of a blind has a big pile of shotgun shells with a couple of beer bottles, which is fairly common, and this sort of thing. And we see these for days after the hunting is ended, or that session of hunting. So And I walk this with my dog. I'm always afraid of my dog getting shot and so forth, so. But anyway, the signs get blasted, and then the future hunters after that have no idea what's happening. Even if they did, they might not respect it. So, anyway, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. It looks,
Thank you, Kermit.
it looks like a couple of the pictures you're showing us are ones in the packet, if I'm not mistaken, right? I think so, yeah. Those are bigger, but yeah, okay. And then who took the pictures before that? Is that somebody else, or there's some pictures of like a kind of a stick blind maybe, and then there's a more formal blind, and then there's a bunch of junk.
Well, we all kind of take them at different times.
Okay, so that is a compilation. Okay, that's fine.
Yeah, we all take
Okay. So next is Donna Harris, and then John Stassen.
Donna Harris. I live in River Meadows also. And my issue is with safety concerns of the hunting corridor. So I'd like you to please review and consider closing down this waterfowl hunting corridor extending from approximately River Mile 199 near the Robert Maxwell Veterans Memorial Bridge over the Upper Deschutes River to approximately River Mile 203, just outside the north boundary of the River Forest Acres community. We live in the community of River Meadows along the Upper Deschutes River, just north of the above area described. Living here for 13 years and being avid hikers and dog walkers and occasional mountain bikers and kayakers, we have done all these activities along the river and the river upstream, extending from our community to the spring adjacent to the northern boundary of River Forest Acres community. A section of this 1.5-mile one-way trail has been marked for waterfowl hunting. Not being aware of varying hunting times and dates, we have often hiked or dog walked this trail and have been totally caught off guard with goose and duck hunters shooting adjacent to us, as the trail often skirts the west side of the river. In the 13 years of living here, we have noticed an astounding increase in recreational activity along the hunting corridor, with river traffic being almost nonstop at times. We have been told of multiple residences across the river from the hunting section that have had birds shot land close to their homes and the occupants. This especially is a concern and safety issue for these residents. Because many recreationists are not necessarily local, we feel that many are clueless as to this section of the river being open to hunting. We recently learned that an early open season on the hunting Canadian geese will occur from September 8th through the 12th. With September weather being usually pleasant, we are sure that there's going to be heavy river traffic during this period, with kayakers, paddleboarders, and boaters floating through the hunting corridor, as this is a popular route from Lapine State Park to the marina across from Big River Campground. This would totally be unsafe for unsuspecting recreationists. Another concern in the years of our hiking this route, we have come across illegal permanently built duck blinds using metal fence posts and wood pallet construction in one particular case. We have reported these illegal structures along the riverbanks to the Forest Service personnel, who have then stated that they are unlawful, but they do not have the manpower to send out anybody to the area to deconstruct them, leaving this job to the public to clean up. Because target shooting is restricted within 150 yards of a residence or an occupied area, we would hope that this hunting corridor would be restricted in the same way and abolished as being a public safety hazard. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Donna.
So next, John Stassen, and then Janine Stassen.
Hi. I'm a local physician here in Bend. In October, my wife and I bought a vacation house down on Big River Drive, which is in Water Wonderland 1. I just wanted to speak to the fact that I was raised in South Dakota. I wouldn't say an avid hunter anymore, but I certainly grew up hunting, and I'm real familiar with duck and pheasant hunting. And when we moved, or we didn't move, but when we go down to the river house, I oftentimes take my kids who are 11 and 13, and we have a dog, and the house is kind of bustling with activity with kids. And I was surprised to hear the amount of gun activity that I heard when I first moved there. I wasn't anticipating that, honestly. And the location where we're at is, there's a sort of a big bend in the river where we are, and we're on the, just on the east side of that big bend, where the hunting area is on the other side of the peninsula, sort of. So I've personally, I've heard, gunshot, the whistle of, pellets go by, maybe not by my house, but certainly close enough to hear that. And for me, it's a safety concern for my children, and it's also, disruption of the wildlife and just sort of the serene setting of the place where we live. So, and also I've also personally witnessed dead ducks floating by during that time of the year, which, obviously isn't great. So I guess that's all I have to say. Thanks for hearing me.
Thank you.
Thank you, John.
And Janine Stassen.
Hi, thanks for your time. My name is Janine Stassen. Since I'm the last one, I think a lot of the stuff may have already been said, but as a mom of our 2 children and living in this nice neighborhood, my main concern as well is the fact that the hunting seems to take place also out of designated zones. Our house actually was hit by shells before we moved in there. We live very close to, we're on the river and we're just across from the peninsula, like John said. Our house is not the only one that has been hit repeatedly by shells of shotguns. And one of our neighbors was shot at when they were told to tell the hunters to stop shooting close to the house. Another grandfather was with his children and was, shot at, not shot at, but the bird shot showered the roof and deck of their residence. So this is something that's happening extremely close to our peaceful residents. Also, we are right by South Century, and I'm not sure if somebody mentioned that there's been dead geese found over there on South Century Drive, which is right by the public boat launch. And there's also a general feeling of just being frightened to ask the hunters to obey the laws. We see the hunters across the peninsula, and it is disruptive because they have their dogs, which causes a ruckus with our animals on our side of our residence where we're living. They also come sometimes onto people's property to retrieve their ducks, which is also intimidating to us as homeowners, and also disrespectful of private property. So that's something that we don't feel comfortable with. And yeah, I think the main thing that we're concerned with is safety. I know it's been touched upon a lot, but it is, there's so many people going up and down the river all the time, and it's just extremely dangerous to have these hunters right there. So thanks for your time this morning.
Thank you, Janine.
Thank you. So that's all, I think, unless there's anybody else wanted to testify on this issue, that was all the people that had turned in forms. In terms of going forward, we heard about this at the Upper Deschutes River Coalition, as Commissioner DeBone said. I personally am not familiar with the specific area, so to me, I guess I'd like to go see it. And we could probably schedule that sometime. I see that a lot of the areas are already no shooting zones. It looks like we have we got our ordinances out yesterday because we had been notified that a lot of you'd be here to talk about this. It looks like there's a procedure for restricting areas, but I don't know if is there an ordinance, Dave, with regard to actually the county making something a no shooting zone at this time? Or the restricting looks like it's where you allow hunting, not. But I don't know if that's what, I couldn't quite understand what the ordinance was saying.
In this case, I think the relevant inquiry is who's the property owner, and I believe it's federal land, and you don't have any legal jurisdiction over the federal government to take away the hunting that they allow on that property. And state law preempts you as a county from imposing any laws that affect firearms unless the state carves out an exception. They do carve out a tiny exception for regulating the discharge of firearms, but among other things, they say that your local rule cannot apply or affect a person discharging a firearm in the course of lawful hunting. And if the property owner allows hunting on that property and it's federal government, to which you don't have any jurisdiction over them legally, state law doesn't give you the ability to do anything in that case. Maybe there's a political fix, but I don't believe there's a legal fix, and that's been kind of been echoed. And if the folks have been sent to different places, it's a confusing web legally, but at the end of the day, it's my understanding it's federally owned land that allows hunting. Now, granted, people might be hunting outside the parameters of what they're supposed to do, but if that's allowed by state law, you're not able to step in locally and impose any laws that would affect the discharge of firearms within that area that the federal government designates for hunting. So that's how I legally see it. Again, I'm not saying there might not be some other administrative or political fix, but I don't know how you get there from here legally.
Okay, so it kind of, I don't think I understand what you're saying. So what I think we're hearing from our legal counsel is it wouldn't be us creating an ordinance like this because of that we don't control the land. What he's talking about, a political fix, is we do interact with the Forest Service on a number of issues as commissioners, because we represent the citizens of the county, and which all of you are, and probably a lot of the hunters are also. So we do represent everybody, I guess. And sometimes we do work with the Forest Service to try to make things happen. We do it with forest management plans, with fire issues, other specific requests where people interact with the Forest Service. So that'd be something we could look into. I think for me, I'd probably go in and looking at it. I am a hunter, so but I've never been hunted in this area. And I'd be interested in seeing the area. It seems like there would be more use growing through the years, and more hikers, more people in the river, et cetera. And I understand the conflict myself. And I know what shot sounds like going by. So, and all the other things you're describing. But that'd be my thought. What are your thoughts?
Well, and was it at your house, Miss Abilene, that I attended? Yeah, and then Carol was there. So as I said, I went right to it, right? You called, and I was like, oh, let's see what's going on here. I've communicated with hunting folks, the sheriff's office, and the federal government, and it's federal on both sides of the property there, and legally we just don't have the opportunity to create an ordinance or a resolution or anything that says stop doing this, and it is a conflict. But yeah, I mean, I'm not opposed to bringing it around again, laying it right out there, and having the right players at the table to discuss.
And we do have a new director for the Forest Service in Deschutes County. So it is a woman, Holly Hauk. I haven't had the pleasure of meeting her yet, but she is new to the area. And I noticed in 2009, you said the U.S. Forest Service was going to do something. So I would suggest contacting Holly. And also, have you talked to Congressman Walden's office about this at all?
No, not Congressman Walden, but we did speak to the representative who just vacated his seat. We have a new one, actually, and they were successful. And I think they've gone through the same process. So we did go that route, and then because there was a change in office, it got dropped. And so it was another one of those things where we just hit a dead end, and so.
Okay.
Well, I'm going to be, I have the pleasure of going to Washington on the 10th of September, and I'm going to be in Congressman Walden's office probably on the 9th. So I'll mention it to him that it is his district, and, it's a relatively very teeny area, but it's incredibly impactful, and, we do have public safety to deal with. So I'd be happy to do that.
Well, good. Well, we need to move on with our agenda, but thanks for coming today and sharing your views, and maybe there'll be some further action, and maybe we can come out and visit the area soon. So, yeah, thank you. Yep. So the next items on the agenda is the consent agenda. I was interested in hearing a little bit about the item number 1, just because I'm not familiar with it from prior meetings. Is there anything else anybody wants to hear about or comment on?
No, that would be good.
So,
I move we approve the consent agenda with the exception of item number 1.
I'll second it.
okay, any further discussion? Commissioner Dare?
Yes.
Commissioner DeBonne?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. So our action items, we'll move number 1 down to the action item agenda before we convene as Center Service District. I just had a couple questions. Nancy, if you could join us and
For the record, Nancy Tyler, Intensive Adult Services Program Manager, semi-retired.
good.
Right now, but Molly had to
Thank
go
you
to.
for joining us.
Yes, so I'm happy.
Yeah.
to talk
So,
about that. And we also have Captain Schultz here to talk about
Okay.
the sheriff's part. So.
Okay, well, if you want to come up, you can, yeah. I just, my main reason for bringing it up is I was interested to read it. I wasn't aware of the scope of it. Maybe it was because of the level it comes in front of us now, which is great. But I was just curious a little bit about the history and how long this contract has existed and what all is done with that.
Sure. So it's actually a long-standing contract. I've been in my position for 5 years, and it was in existence before I started. It's one that we've renewed annually. And the reason it's actually coming before you this time is because Pfeiffer actually was providing an increased number of, served an increased number of individuals in this last year, and so we actually increased the contract amount specific to the behavioral health component so that they can provide, hopefully, to even some more individuals. This last year, they provided services to 27 individuals. We've increased it to 34. So these are individuals who have been served by the sheriff's department component in the jail, and then as those individuals discharge from jail, then Pfeiffer serves them in the community, and that's our part of the contract, the behavioral health part. So it's sort of a joint contract with Sheriff's Department and us.
Yeah, this is Captain Michael Schultz. And just to kind of reiterate the flow, this is kind of an intergovernment procedure. So then when we get a vulnerable person in jail, and last year in 2018, with Pfeiffer and Associates, we served for drug and alcohol over 2,200 individuals in our custody and care, both male and female. So they go through what we call a restart and motivational enhancement to start looking at their behaviors to see if we can change cognitively their thinking so that they don't reoffend. Out of that, all those individuals that come and meet the help of that criteria for Pfeiffer and Associates, some of them go into the outside for outpatient. This is what we talked about, that warm handoff. Mm-hmm. So from the jail to our partners out there so that we can stop that recidivism. We think it's working. Mm-hmm. It doesn't get everybody. A lot of people come back through, but it's really the only thing we have in the county to try to turn individuals around from using drugs and alcohol. And they're low-level offenders, but they're chronically ill because of their behavior.
Mm-hmm.
So, Nancy, so you said 27 individuals and 34, and Captain Schultz said 2,200. So are we talking about different people there? Or?
Yeah, so anybody in our jail custody, because it's part of the inmate management system, so when we get somebody in, we don't want them just sitting in the dorms. We want them learning about something, getting their minds off crime or trying to escape, really. And if they have the drug and alcohol stuff, because we've got a unique position. They're not in the community, they're not using drugs, they're not around their friends, and some of them are starting to become stable. Those individuals will go through the class. Out of that, there are going to be individuals that want to change their lives. And that's where the warm handoff, because they'll meet mentors in the jail, they'll meet them outside, even through parole and probation. So they'll go into parole and probation and they'll get treatment there. And then Sally Pfeiffer will have another resource that we can pull them in to get more intensive treatment through some of these outpatient.
So does this funding do both of those things? It's doing the 2,200 people as a program and the more intensive 27 or 34? That this grant or this contract does both? I think it's-
90,000 we pay from the sheriff's office and that we do. We're not asking for an increase on our side. We believe our program's working, it's providing enough people to go outside. This is specifically for behavioral health and our partners in the outside to increase that, to get more people in these outpatient programs.
Right, so the 2,200 is covered by that 90,000, and then this is, as Captain Schultz was saying, this is for the individuals that then really are required or interested in that continued outpatient services. And I don't know all the details of what Pfeiffer provides in the jail, but I'm sure some of it is educational. And so not everyone who maybe needs an educational level really then needs the ongoing treatment. But as he was also mentioning, we actually have a separate contract with Pfeiffer where they actually have mentors, peers who go into the jail. And that's part of why we're seeing an increase in the number of individuals being served through our part of the contract. Because that warm handoff that they're able to do with those mentors and really helping bridge as people come back into the community. So, yeah, and we're not asking for any funding from you guys, it's just approval of the contract. This is covered through our intergovernmental agreement, Service Element 66. Alcohol and drug funding.
Yesterday,
Any questions?
I actually heard about like 24 and 25-year-olds that are using drugs that are blowing up their hearts, and they have to have they're having a surgery to repair the valve or whatever that they've blown in their heart, but yet it's a drug problem. And so you can't just, like fix them medically with the heart, but you've got to go, you've got to go and help them with their addictions or whatever they're taking. And so, it was really how unfortunate, because one of them had been fixed and then he was back in the hospital, he's back in ICU again. So the program has to grab those people.
Thanks. Questions or
Well,
thoughts?
so just the observation, so you're saying 2,000 something people could be kind of the pool that end up going through the system in a year?
Yeah, and remember that's our contract.
Yep.
The contract we're talking about is the big.
And then it's a subset that are given that warm handoff, that are ready for it, that can respond to it, yeah.
And since we've
Great.
really had it as a joint contract for all these years, since our part increased, then that led us to the threshold to come to y'all.
Okay.
With that, I'll move board signature of document number 2019-442 with Pfeiffer and Associates.
And I'll second it.
Further discussion?
Thank you for, this is a critical problem that we have, and we've got to address it. So thank you for being here today.
Yeah, thank
Yeah.
you. and for
Thanks.
your
So,
support.
Commissioner Bone?
Yes.
Commissioner Adair?
Yes.
Chair votes yes. Thank you. All right. So we're going to convene as the governing body of the Sun River Service District Managing Board. And I guess there's a letter appointing Mark Burford. I think I have it, yeah. No, I don't have it in my stack. Okay. So, I guess we just need a motion approving this appointment.
I move we approve the appointment of Mark Burford to the Sun River Service District Managing Board. It's position number 2, and it's a term through August 31st, 2021.
And I'll second it.
Okay, and this is a replacement of prior member Mike Gaki, I guess, so. So Commissioner Adair,
Yes.
Commissioner Bone,
Yes.
and Chair votes yes. Thank you. Now we'll reconvene as the governing body of Deschutes County. Item number 5 is a quarter 2004-2019 update on performance measures.
Good morning, Board. I'm Eric Kropp, Deputy County Administrator. I'll introduce this item. This is the Board's quarterly update on the Board's fiscal year 2019 goals and objectives. Each quarter, we have a number of departments that highlight measures that are in support of the goals and objectives. And to kick us off, we have Nancy Blankenship, our County Clerk, who will talk about the goal of service delivery and the objective of ensuring quality services delivery through the use of innovative technology and systems. And I think Nancy has some additional information for the board as well.
So, Mr. Chair, just a quick comment. So, I really advocate for the whole organization to take time and do this. So thank you very much for joining us and whoever else is going to. This is the broad picture of what we planned on doing, what the departments can do to implement the goals, the visions of Deschutes County for the citizens, and taking time to really review. So thank you for the staff and everybody that does this with us.
Well, thank you, Nancy Blankenship, for the record, Deschutes County Clerk. So Eric had on the first page of this staff report, information about the goal for our recording staff. What I'm passing out is a little bit more information about history for the page count for recording. The one in the packet kind of indicates how the page per FTE is calculated. The one I'm handing out gives you more history back to fiscal 2014-15. Also handed out just some updated information on the voter registration per FTE, which I'm not going to talk about, wanting to focus on the recording part of that. But of the 4 comparable counties that we look at, Clackamas, Jackson, Lane, and Marion, only Marion County, like Deschutes, is a passport accepting agency and offers a full archive service. Lane has an archive, but it's not at the same level of service as Deschutes County. Although Clackamas and Lane process more pages per FTE, again, they do not provide the additional services Deschutes County does: passport agency acceptance and archive services. So what the information is showing you is that the citizens of Deschutes County is receiving a good bang for the buck, so to speak, as far as a number of recording document pages that we are recording per FTE, along with the additional services we provide. Passport acceptance agencies, which we've been before you recently, and you know that the passport are continuing to increase. And we just got news from the Department of Motor Vehicles that they are not going to be able to implement, I forgot the House bill number, that made those changes with this last legislative session as quickly as they'd hoped. So we'll be seeing an increased level of passports, or they're going to be suggesting people get in passports rather than using their Oregon driver's license to travel. So thank you very much. Any questions?
So the bigger picture, the passport is a much more official national and international
Correct.
credential than having an Oregon driver's license.
Right. Right. Thank you.
Oh, no,
I'm out of here.
So, I was, as you know, we talked a lot about the new bill on the 2 years ago where they increased the fee for recording, and I see all the recordings are down substantially in all the counties. I mean, from a high in Clackamas County of 87,000 to 55,000 now. We were at 78 in 16, 17, and you'd see just a gradual increase. Now we're down to 54. I mean, these are like, almost 50%, 40% decreases. Is that just the difference in the mortgage rates and refinancing, or do you think we're losing a substantial amount of recordings because people don't want to pay the $120 that we now charge or whatever?
That's kind of like trying to figure out if all the efforts you take for precautions for safety and whatnot are trying to determine what those numbers are. You know that the numbers are good, but you're not sure if your precautions you're taking are making a difference or not. So I'm not sure. I know we haven't, because it's the mortgages, when people record mortgages where the page count and the dollars are provided. And so if the interest rates continue to go down, people might be starting to relook at refinancing, so those numbers may kind of go up. But it's hard for us to tell because it's hard to document what's not happening.
Well, I guess the one place would be is people coming up and wanting to record something, and then they hear what it is, and they say, well, I'm not going to do that, and they walk away. And
We haven't had much, I can't say that we've had that, but people do kind of take a step back when you tell them how much to write the check for.
Yeah. Okay. So I guess we'll just see if, and maybe the mortgage companies don't want to pay as much, so maybe they're shortening their mortgages or something.
Yeah, and who knows what they're doing with,
Yeah.
going through MERS and that kind of stuff. That's still an
Interesting.
ongoing issue.
Okay, any questions?
No questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, Nancy.
Next up, we have our Information Technology Department, Joe Sidoni. He's going to talk about the upgrade to the county's phone system. This supports the objective of providing collaborative internal support for county operations. And the upgrade of the phone system was and continues to be the handsets as well as the software that runs the phone system. Just as a note, the handsets were quite old and sometimes didn't work. I know a couple years ago when I picked up the phone, it wouldn't answer. So I called IT. They sent somebody over, and the latch hook wasn't working. And so in terms of providing cost-effective solutions, rather than replacing the handset, the cost-effective solution was to take a Band-Aid and cut a little square out of the Band-Aid and then paste it to the latch hook, and that actually solved the problem rather than replacing the whole handset. But we are now replacing all those handsets, and I'll let Joe explain
So you
this
ran out of
project.
Band-Aids and decided it was time to.
That's correct. Well, thank you for this opportunity to speak. Joe Sidoni, IT Director for the county. I have a prepared statement. It's better for my scattered brain to go this route, and I'll read it here. It's short. The phone system being replaced is manufactured by Cisco Systems. Its installation, the current phone system, began in 2005. Starting sometime in 2014, we began experiencing a series of issues with the phone system stability. Along with the technical issues, the business, a third-party vendor that helped install and provide ongoing support for the phone system, sold, ending our long relationship with this business. Over the next 3 years, persistent technical issues and difficulty with creating a lasting relationship with the support vendor caused the IT department to expend an unreasonable amount of resources towards the phone system upkeep. These events triggered discussions in IT about the longevity of the Cisco phone system. These discussions resulted with the phone system being added to our 5-year strategic technology replacement schedule with a target replacement date of fiscal 2021. Later that same year, 2017, Cisco Systems sent us a letter stating that future versions of their phone systems software would not support the phone handsets we currently owned. They were telling us that in order to guarantee the longevity of the current phone system, it would require the replacement of all of the handsets. That's 1,200 devices at an average cost of $350 apiece, an investment of roughly $420,000. Knowing this, we started looking at alternative products. What we found was the entire phone system could be replaced for roughly $500,000. That's less than 20% of just replacing the handsets. In March of 2018, the IT department published and awarded a request for qualifications seeking the goods and services necessary to perform a proof of concept to determine the requirements of replacing the Cisco phone system. The primary outcomes the IT department wanted to see from the proof of concept were the first outcome being the new phone system must be easier to manage with existing IT staff. Though third-party technical support for any system is necessary, we wanted to be more effective with our own staff. Second outcome was we wanted the phone system's licensing structure to be straightforward and easily understood. We sought to increase the accuracy of cost estimates relating to the phone system's acquisition and maintenance. From the proof of concept, we determined the Cisco phone system could be replaced with a new, modern product for approximately $488,000. Further, because of the improved user-friendly design of a more modern phone system, a newfound confidence with third-party vendor support, the IT department felt confident that department staff could perform the entire installation in no more than 24 months. So where are we today? We began implementing the new phone system in June of 2018. The first roughly 6 months of the replacement project was used to develop a replacement plan, educate ourselves on the new phone system, some initial configuration, and extensive testing. With the goal of completing no later of 2020, to date we have placed 460 of 1,040 handsets of the new phone system. So we're not quite 50% of the way there. However, we estimate by the end of September, which is next month, all county departments, with the exception of health services and the sheriff's office, will be on the new phone system. The current estimate for completion is February of 2020, and the total replacement cost is estimated to be $440,000.
Great.
And that's a lesson in how technology ages pretty quickly,
So
actually.
one way or another, we were going to be spending some dollars and may as well go with the.
Yes, and in fact, so from a funding standpoint, all of this is funded through the IT technology reserve. And so no additional budget appropriation was necessary for this project.
As someone whose phone didn't work the first day they started the job, and I'm going, well, Sharon, what's going on here? I get it, and I'm going like, where was my new phone? So yes, I love my new phone, but yeah, I get it. That was, it was scary.
So I don't know what everybody's experience getting a new phone was, but so if I was just somebody working at the county, one day I didn't really realize we were replacing the phones. Maybe I'd gotten emails, but I didn't notice them or whatever. Phone shows up, there's a manual there, and good luck. So maybe everybody else likes that. I would have actually liked somebody to maybe work our hall and say, hey, is there any questions? I don't know. I haven't tried to reset my message. I don't know how to. I've kind of figured out how to get the messages, but I'm just, maybe everybody else is happy just to get the phone and the instructions and wants to work on it like they do something by at Costco but I personally would have, since you have a program, you have experts, I would have liked some kind of outreach. I mean, I guess there was somebody I could call over, but it felt like I'm just creating a problem then, so I haven't done that really. So
Well, don't be shy to call us. We're all about providing personal assistance whenever necessary.
Yeah.
So one thought is, I think there's an extra message when it goes to voicemail. It's kind of a brand name, welcome to this phone system, and then it goes to the voicemail. Is there a way to customize that or say goodbye to that extra voicemail?
We'll look into that.
Yeah, so it just says
I
welcome to the brand name, and it's like, well, I don't need to know this.
actually haven't noticed that, but
Yeah, and maybe it's not on all phones, but I think it's on mine, so.
Sure.
But, yeah, and then I had that moment where my phone kept going red and all the lights were on and off, and I didn't know what was going on. It was fully integrated with Outlook, so when I had an Outlook item that says I was busy, it put my phone in standby and it went directly to message. So it was
Never do that.
It was a little setting, but it's good to
true now?
understand. Oh, it's a setting you can turn on and off, and usually it's off, is my understanding.
We try to turn it off. By
Oh, yeah.
default, it's on.
Oh,
We
yeah.
try to turn it off when we do the installation.
I really had no idea what it was doing.
So those are the kind of things that, we've had the phones now for 6 months. I haven't never heard of that. I don't know if it's on mine or not. I mean, those are kind of things that, to me, if you're putting in it sounds like these are $350 phones. That's a substantial purchase. Maybe there's other people who want to know about it and don't ask either. But
Well, we're in the throes of just getting the system out and getting off of the old phone system. Our next goal would be to come back around and try to make better use of the new features and whatnot of the new phone system and educate people about it. We don't quite have the staff resources to do that at this point in time, but we're almost done with the installation, so just a few more months and we'll come back around and provide some education.
Joe, that's just saying. But if I bought a car and you'll tell me as soon as we've sold all the cars in our lot, we'll come
I
by and
get
show you
you.
how to drive it. It sounds a
Like I
little,
said,
I think it'd make more sense to be doing it as you sell the cars and install the phones. So,
Makes sense.
just a thought, but we're surviving, so.
But a large, cost-effective project. Thank you very much.
Thanks. Yeah.
I would think that the two departments we're waiting on, though, the sheriff's office, I think public safety and the sheriff's office is really, I don't know how you prioritized, who are you going to help first, but,
Right.
and our health department.
Yes.
So I know they're huge, but I do think they were really important.
Oh, they are important.
No, I meant, like, I would have put them at the top of the list. The fact that my phone didn't work, yes, I needed a new phone, but, you know, I would like our sheriffs. When did you guys do
Absolutely.
911?
The thought process that goes behind that is those two departments come with a lot of complexity in terms of how they use their phones. And they're also spread out throughout the county, unlike a lot of our smaller departments. We anticipate making some, I don't want to say mistakes, but we anticipate some issues with any new system at the outset. We don't want those issues, we want those issues occurring with the least amount of people, of employees, and get those corrected more easily than having to deal with a very complex situation where now this issue is causing, is being more complex, compounded by, the hundreds of people in those departments and how they use their phones.
Well, I'm just happy that Commissioner DeBone's phone was having the problem because I had enough problems in my
Yes.
office.
It wasn't a
It's-
problem. It was just smarter than
I
me.
saw, I know, I
It's a
saw
new
the lights
technology
flashing.
thing, right?
All right, thanks.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Joe.
Next up, we have Tim Shimke, our Solid Waste Director, who will talk about waste tonnage and recyclables collected.
Good morning, Tim.
Morning.
Recycling.
Thank you. I have an extra one.
So we discussed briefly on Monday when we talked about the management plan, the recycling rate and our goal and things like that, and I expressed some frustration with DEQ and how they calculate and, the fact that we won't know how we did from DEQ in 2018 until October or November of 2019. So it's difficult to be timely with reports to the board. So this is our attempt to switch gears and basically look at just the tons that are collected and recycled in the solid waste system. So we're looking at what we get from the franchise collectors and what we get at our depots and at our disposal sites. And we're going to track that number and be able to, address shortfalls or problems that we see might be coming up. Just for instance, in 2017 there, that first column on the front page, 61,288 tons is what we've tracked in our system. In that year, DEQ said we diverted 88,562 tons. So there's a lot of tons that gets diverted from the landfill that we don't see in our system, and that's really kind of what I'm trying to do is let's focus on what we collect, what we can impact, so that we can, if we see things dropping off, we can go talk to the provider, the service provider, and come up with a rational explanation as to why things are changing or maybe make corrections. We're trying to be more accurate, and we're trying to be more timely here. So, and as also as an example, I think in the budget, the target was 60,388 tons. That we were trying to exceed because that's what we thought we had in 2017. You see here that actually in 2017 we had 61,288. So my management analysis is putting a sharp eye on what we're looking at and we're making some corrections along the way. Obviously here we did exceed 60,388, which is good news, but we actually had a 0.5% decrease in the tons. And you see the individual commodities there. Some of the discrepancies, the reason for the drop, I have yet to explore. This is kind of in the past. I'm more focused on moving forward. I will point out, though, that it's become obvious that our stream is changing. So the commingled stream, the top line there, we lost 5.6%. And that is not so much that we're collecting less volume. It's the fact that that mix of containers and cardboard and newspaper and magazines is changing. So the same 30-yard box that we ship today weighs less than the same 30-yard box we shipped 5 years ago, just because there's less newspaper, there's less magazines in there, so things are getting lighter. So there's some reason for some of these changes or these drops that really are kind of out of our control, but our goal is to try and hone in on those things that we can control and impact and go from there.
I see, also the container glass went down. I wonder if with the new 10-cent return fee, maybe
Very
people
well.
are taking more things to the, 10 cents, you can actually come home with a few dollars as opposed to be,
Some people out there making a living.
Yeah.
Collecting 10-cent
Yeah.
cans, it's
Yeah.
true, and bottles.
or some of us just returning our 10 cents to get.
Mm-hmm.
What's the compacted yard debris? Why, that's gone down. It's only a couple %, but it's a lot of tons. What's uncompacted mean?
So, compacted yard debris, that's what gets picked up at the curb.
Oh.
They pick it up in a truck and they compact it, and so that weighs differently, and we track that differently than the stuff that comes in from Fire Free and just the general public hauling it out to our disposal sites, that's loose. So there is uncompacted yard debris down below.
Yeah. So the compacted went up 25%, so that's being picked up at the homes. So are there more debris deals out there than there was a year before? I mean, have the franchise haulers put out more debris things? I mean, that's
I believe that
Yeah.
that section of service is growing. More and more people it's a subscription service for that backyard collection or that, curb collection, and that number is growing.
Just look at the number that those went up 1,200 and the uncompacted went down 400. So that's kind of
Yeah.
suggests that there's actually totally.
Also, the uncompacted yard debris is difficult. It's, we're estimating cubic yards. And so individual attendance or, for instance, on a big event like Fire Free, the accuracy there can slide, one way or another. That's difficult to.
Tim, they didn't do the fire testing with the debris at Fire, did they? We got that approved, or did we not? Did DEQ ever?
We can do that at the site. DEQ
Okay.
says we can do that. We'll need to contact them and show them how we plan to do that safely. But it can be done on the site if the Cloverdale Fire Department wants to do that.
Because they wanted to do that, so,
We're welcoming that, yes.
okay.
On the flip side of that,
Training
first page you're looking at?
It was going to be a training exercise.
Yeah, they want to take a portion of our yard debris, not the whole pile because it's rather large, but start it on fire and then put it out.
Yes, they were gonna
and then
put it out.
Do that over and over again as they train
Planned,
their
yeah.
people.
On an unwindy day.
Good.
The good news is that reduces volume.
Yeah, good opportunity to train.
So on the flip side of that first page that you looked at there, I've kind of showed a history. We went back and looked at those items that we've decided to track, and you can see how those kind of fall out. The last column, the total, interesting that we went, 55 to 62 to 72, 72 then down to 61 and 60. I think in those 2 years, 15 and 16, where we had that big jump, I think that's an anomaly that we have not explored. But somebody is reporting something differently than they had before, and I think it got corrected 2 years later. So we have those kind of oddball things that happen out there. In the past, we've always kind of relied on DEQ to try and explain that. But again, we're upping our game, and we're trying to do this much more efficiently and accurately. This is all currently in the calendar year format. That's where DEQ works. I'd like to switch it over and do it on a fiscal year because that's the way we report to you, so we're in that process of making that change. If you go to the second sheet, waste flows. I think you guys may have, I don't know if Tom shares these, I give these to Tom every month, but here's our history of waste flows. I've cut off quite a bit of the past history, just showing here kind of from the recession moving forward, how our waste flows dropped through those years and now how they're coming back. Again, in kind of an interest of lining it up with the fiscal year instead of the calendar year, on the back side, I show the last two fiscal years, fiscal year 18 and 19. So in fiscal year 19, we lost 1%, about 2,000 tons coming into the landfill. Currently, we're running at a basically a zero, a flat, a 12-year rolling average. We're flat, but we did have a really good second quarter, and when we budgeted for a 3% increase in tons into the landfill, and I think there's a really good possibility that we'll have that. We're busy these days, obviously. Summertime is our busy time, so we expect to be low in the first quarter and then start recovering in the second and third quarter. So
It's interesting how that it just tracks the economy.
yeah,
Peak was 06, the bottom was
those figures.
2011, and we're not quite to where we were in 06.
I send these figures to Tim Dewey at the University of
Yeah.
Oregon for his economic forecast.
He
So
puts them in, yeah.
really interesting. Yeah.
Good. Great.
Questions?
Just a reminder that, yeah, there's a lot of detail, a lot of tracking going on there. So we see a lot of the consolidated numbers, like in our budget document, but there's
Right.
a lot more behind it.
Right. And I could show you, well, you do see a little bit by the franchise collectors on the back side of that one sheet, so we could show you that kind of detail. Here's how Ben Garbage compares to Cascade Disposal, compares to High Country, we can, my management analyst has been a wonderful hire, and she's a go-getter. She dives into these numbers, so,
And I noticed that food waste is still up really high.
yeah.
That is so, I mean, it's amazing.
So a nice increase there, and we'll see that. Yeah, thinking about that though, I think this fall, we will probably say to all those customers who are taking yard debris that they can put all of their food waste, meat and dairy, in there as well. But that's since it goes into the yard debris can, we're not going to be able to track that increase in food waste in those cans. The increase that you see here is really from those restaurants and grocery stores and institutions that are participating in the program. So that's a nice boost in that number, and we'll continue to track that.
For food waste, it may be interesting to just provide an example. As in, it's always interesting thinking, as a percentage of waste, that number is that big. So I'm just saying, I'd be available for, on the ground, this is what we're talking about. Is it restaurants and, institutions, or is it just a percent of residential? It's still, I'd like to see it a little bit more.
Yeah, that would be interesting. I wonder if,
And it'd probably be the haulers or the
Yeah.
franchise people
Yeah.
could show us.
it'd be nice to see how many entities are participating, how many entities might we add to that program, as we move forward and start promoting that. Might be interesting to see maybe.
If there's a specific field trip, maybe that's an opportunity to look for.
Good. Thanks, Steve.
You bet.
Appreciate it.
Next up, we have staff from the Public Health Division of the Health Services Department talking about investigation and response of communicable disease and also immunization. We have Heather Keisner, who is a public health program manager, and also Dr. Rich Fawcett, who is the county's health officer.
Oh, you did? Or did we? I don't think we got these.
In our box upstairs, not.
I've got two more.
Oh, look at that, they're everywhere.
She brought it for me.
Great, thank you.
Good morning, Commissioners. I'm Heather Keisner, and I'm over in Deschutes County Public Health, and I manage the communicable disease programs. And so I was asked today to come and talk about our communicable disease program and the work we do, and specific to our measles response. And I didn't want to talk about that without bringing our public health officer, which is Dr. Richard Fawcett. First, I want to introduce you to Dr. Fawcett. I wasn't sure how many of you have met him. He is a very important piece of the work we do in really responding to our communicable disease public health threats in our response and keeping our public safe. So I think first off, I just wanted Dr. Fawcett to talk a little bit about what he does for our county. He's been with us for over 12 years and also has a private practice in town and is an infectious disease specialist.
So welcome.
Great. Thanks for having me. Good morning, Commissioners. I'm Dr. Fawcett. I am the designated liaison consultant for the Deschutes County Health Department. Every county in every state, certainly in Oregon, Washington, has a specified health officer, and they work in different forms. Often they're on contract. Some positions are full-time. For instance, in the Portland metro area, most of those health officers are full-time. Outside of that, most of the health officers are part-time and on contract. And probably my biggest role really is to assist with a variety of topics that are ongoing or sometimes episodic within communicable diseases. And within that, there are quite a variety of reportable diseases that are contagious. Some are fairly common, some are not. And then within the program, too, we also have a fairly active tuberculosis program, immunizations program as well. And we work a lot with certain sexually transmitted diseases, in particular HIV. So that's a large chunk of what I do. As I mentioned, there is ongoing work that's done all the time within communicable disease, and then there's also more episodic work when we have potential outbreaks or if we have outbreaks. We seem to have more and more every year since I've been here over 10 years. So that's my role. I do work part-time. I'm usually there once or twice a week over in the Courtney building, and work a lot with communicable disease and with Heather in particular.
So I wanted to talk a little bit about our measles response, and I think you all have this piece of paper. I think it was back in February when I came and gave you all an update on what we were working on. And so a big piece of our work in communicable disease is we respond to reportable diseases, so reported, and they're reported to us by different healthcare providers. And in 2018, we responded to over 1,000 communicable disease reports from healthcare providers and investigated those. And just to give you some numbers, so far in 2019, the first half of 2019, we've had 766 reports. So we're definitely on par to of our reports being increased this year. So the work, it's a lot of work, but it's exciting work, and we have an amazing team that really responds to this. So those are just the reportable diseases. And then we have what we call our public health threats, our emerging public health threats. I'm sure you all remember Ebola in the news and Zika virus and things like that. And so a big piece of what we do is respond and prepare in case those diseases come to our neighborhood. And unfortunately, back in January, we did have a measles exposure. And so this really kind of walks you through the timeline of events and what our team in the communicable disease program did to respond to that measles exposure. I'm thankfully can say that we didn't have any cases in Deschutes County, which is wonderful. However, we did actively monitor 16 Deschutes County residents, meaning one of my communicable disease nurses called them every day for 21 days to see if they were starting to develop symptoms. So I can confidently say that if we would have had a case from one of those, we would have been able to nip it in the bud very quickly with the goal of preventing further spread. So that's really the reason we do that active monitoring. On the flip side, though, I just wanted to give you a brief update on the big measles outbreak that happened in Clark County, Washington, because that was all over the news, and that's where our exposure came from. They did have 71 cases. It is now considered, the outbreak's considered over. And however, they were 58 days in outbreak response, and 237 people helped respond to that outbreak in Clark County. And they excluded 849 students and staff from school during that incubation period. So this is just a snapshot of what happened in that county that really could happen in any county. The concern and the ongoing concern for measles is really, when you look at that graph below, in that we are up to over 1,200 cases in the U.S., and that's the highest we've been in over 25 years of measles cases. So while we were lucky this last time and we really tried to prevent any measles in our community, it is definitely an ongoing threat to our community that we're watching really closely. And then What I also brought is this bright yellow. We don't want to see this yellow. So during our measles exposure, we worked really closely with our school districts, and Dr. Fawcett was an important part of that as well. And we met with Superintendent of Ben Lapine Schools and brought this with us. And what this represents is every school that's highlighted in yellow on one side and daycares on the other side. Anything that's below a 95% means that they're much higher risk of having a measles outbreak within their school, which means if they had one case in their school, it's much more likely to spread like wildfire in that school. Measles is highly contagious, and you need around a 94 to 95% vaccination rate to keep it at bay. For an example, if Commissioner Adair had measles and left this room, and I came in an hour later, I could be exposed to measles. That's how contagious it is. So our goal really with vaccinations is to ensure that we have high community immunity, but also high pockets of immunity, because people tend to congregate, and we're concerned about some of these schools with really low immunization rates.
Heather, one thing that I don't think Americans remember is that 110,000 people, didn't they die of the measles a year ago in third world countries? So it still is a disease that can kill you. We're just fortunate in our country. And, you know, when I was young, we definitely had problems with a lot of diseases that now we have vaccinations for.
Mm-hmm.
So, but no, it is a huge, you know, fatal disease outside of our country.
Yes, it still is.
Yes. I mean, that was like last year. So it's like, please get your vaccinations.
So, I have a question on the yellow category ones. So you said that 94 and above is what you want to be above 94. So that means 5 out of every 100 kids doesn't have their vaccinations. So,
Measles.
so say you're at 92, that means 8 don't. Why is 8 that don't a more risky environment than 5? I mean, it just seems like those that don't are at risk, whether why do they break off at 95%, I guess is my question.
Some of that comes from previous data in terms of how measles will spread. It is very contagious, airborne droplet spread. And part of the data also relates to the fact that in a given population, there's going to be children that cannot have the vaccine, either because they have other medical problems where they're ineligible, like immune suppression, or very young kids. It could be, kids at home, that younger siblings that are not old enough to have the full vaccine series at that point. So you have kids that get exposed, often the most medically fragile kids that can't get the vaccine or haven't had it yet. So that complicates that even more. So I think but it's based on previous data. That's our target, 94, 95%.
I'm just thinking if say there's 40 people in here, and it's kind of like if there was 2 people that weren't vaccinated, we're safe, but if there's 3 we're not, that didn't really make sense to me. So
well, it's kind of a matter of how quickly it can spread. So the more, like in a classroom, the more people we have vaccinated will protect those kids that aren't vaccinated. However, when you start getting more and more who aren't vaccinated, then you're going to have more cases.
It's like more ways to spread the fact.
Right.
Mm-hmm. So we're kind of trying to put a protective immunity around.
One person has not been vaccinated in a room of 100, but that person then goes and then exposes other people. The incubation period is long. There's about 4 days go by before they even make symptoms. Yeah.
And then the other question I have is, so some of these are real low.
Right.
So what are they, 62%, 71%? I mean, I assume they're aware of that, and so they're happy with that. What goes on next with all of those?
So we do a lot of education with all of the daycares, and all the child care facilities and schools are required to report their immunization status to us every year, and we report that to the state. However, there is currently the law states that people can take a non-medical exemption, and what we're kind of starting to see in the data, and we have been seeing for a while now, is again that congregation of kind of that like-minded individuals coming together in certain schools to create this higher unvaccinated population. And so we really do try to provide education and information to these schools, and all schools are also required to report out, and whether that's on their website or to parents, what their immunization status is. And what is promising is we are getting more and more phone calls from parents asking when they're taking their kids to daycare what the immunization rate is, so that's really promising. And we have on our county website, we have a map, and parents can go on there and click on their child care facility or their school and see what their up-to-date immunization rate is. So we're trying to really get that out through parents.
Are you
That's
doing,
positive.
yeah, are you doing that on a variety of vaccinations, or is it just the measles?
That's one's for all vaccinations if you go on our website.
So you, so you use the chicken pox?
Yep.
The small, okay, good, interesting. Well, we were pretty, informed and involved and knowledgeable about what was going on in the legislature. So this has been in front of us a lot in the last few months. So, questions?
No questions. Thank you very much for the
Interesting.
efforts. Nice
Yeah.
to meet you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Fawcett, for being here. We're so lucky.
Thanks.
We are.
And rounding out our department reports is Community Development Department, who will talk about coordinating with the City of Redmond to entitle the large lot industrial site. And this measure is actually is also coordinated with James Lewis, the county's property manager, who is out this week. But I also just wanted to acknowledge his work on this project as well. So, Peter?
Thank you, Eric. For the record, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Peter Gutowski, Deschutes County Planning Manager. This was an exciting outcome that occurred this summer in 2019 that led to a urban growth boundary amendment of 787 acres of land that's owned by the Department of State Lands that would be exclusively made available for large lot industrial users. Annexation is pending. It's my understanding next month it will be officially annexed into the city of Redmond. But if I can, I know you have a lot on your agenda this morning, but this was an 11-year journey that the Board of County Commissioners pace themselves and staff to undertake, and it's a recognition of the leadership from this Board of County Commissioners. If I may, in 2008, there was an industrial land specialist from what is now Business Oregon that said that there's a significant need, it's a statewide concern, for large lot industrial sites in Oregon. And that need was for sites between 100 and 200 acres. So Deschutes County, never shying away from an opportunity, directed staff to coordinate as a region with assistance from the Department of Land Conservation and Development. It led to 3 grants totaling over $100,000, an advisory committee that included City of Prineville, Redmond, Madras, Bend, the Tri-Counties, and it ultimately led to new state law that allowed the county to respond as a region and to try to compete as a region for these large lot industrial opportunities. And I need to point out that there was active coordination with the with EDCO, Economic Development for Central Oregon. And the emphasis was Deschutes County in partnership with Crook and Jefferson County and its respective cities can compete on a regional level. When you look at our workforce, our population of over 200,000 people, our amenities, our airports, Highway 97, that Deschutes County and the other 2 counties could justify a need for regional large lot industrial sites. And in coordination with the City of Redmond, and other partners, it led to, as I pointed out just at the top of this presentation or overview, it led to the Department of State Lands working with the city, identifying infrastructure needs, because it's imperative that these large lot industrial sites aren't just zoned for that purpose, and we had to have customized zoning to protect these properties for large lot industrial uses, but they have to be shovel ready. And so through the process that the board sent staff on using its coordination authority under state law, there were rules that were put in place and coordination efforts with Central Oregon Intergovernmental Council that identified the 787 acre property. And while 11 years is a long time, and it's a reflection of just how challenging it is to steer state law for these new opportunities, we are the only region in the state of Oregon that can take an advantage of regional large lot industrial sites. This is one that's was identified conceptually over 10 years ago, and it took all the partners that I've outlined to work together, and the board's leadership to direct staff to collaborate under our coordination authority to make this possible. So it's a lot of information to share in a short period of time, but happy to answer any questions if you want follow-up. But for the audience here, it's an exciting opportunity. This property will be marketed in short order, and if we're successful and they land a large lot industrial user, there's opportunities for other sites in the region that can be replenished per state law. And given our growth, and of course today's paper talked about flights in a few months, or maybe in 2020 going to San Diego, you can see the economic opportunities that are here. So this is one of many efforts that the board committed staff to undertake that has economic benefits as we go forward. So the heavy lifting is now with the city and EDCO to market it, but Deschutes County's leadership helping set this policy framework in motion cannot be underscored. So anyway, that's our presentation, just to be mindful of your time and your agenda this morning.
Questions?
So this was started right before I got here, and I could be kind of on the on-ramp with at the EDCO board and as a commissioner, really advocating, understanding it's a tri-county effort. Some of the rules are around not allowing future parcelization and residential uses. So it really is holding it on hard for those large employer, large industrial operations. It should and could provide a path for economic opportunity in the future. Pretty exciting.
Commissioner Dare, comments or
Well, we
thoughts?
know how successful a lot of the diversification of Deschutes County has really happened since the recession or that horrible time in 2010, 11. And it's amazing to see, just like the vacancy rate in Redmond is like 1% or something. So, what we can do to bring in more business is great. And more family wages.
One question I had is there a minimum lot size in this parcel?
In this case, the analysis, it was called the Central Oregon Industrial Lands Analysis. It identified 6 sites, one site for that could serve a regional purpose, which was over 200 acres. So that the Department of State Lands site met that larger end of the spectrum. But there are 3 sites between 50 and 100 acres that can be utilized in the Tri-County region, and then 2 sites between 100 and 200 acres. And then we have the ability to replenish. So in the event that the Department of State Land site is successful and we get a traded sector employer that comes in, we would have the ability to replenish that site to bring in another 200-plus acre site through the rules and process that are spelled out in the state law.
So is there a map that says here's the 50-acre parcels, here's the 100, and here's the, or has that been done yet?
There are, great question, there are, at a reconnaissance level, there are sites that have been identified as potentially eligible, but the region has not mobilized with a willing property owner and with detailed infrastructure analysis to demonstrate that these other reconnaissance level sites could qualify. So,
I mean, in this 787.
The 787.
You're going to show the property tomorrow to a big industry. What is that? Here's A, B, C, and D, or is it? Which 200 do you want?
I think there's flexibility in the process so it's 787 acres to the extent someone comes in and just wants 100. 100 acres, the process allows for them to do that. I think there's limitations on making sure that the site remains for its industrial intent, and that there's protections in place that service sector businesses do not overtake that the overall profile of the site. So there's flexibility within the 787 acres to take advantage of whoever contemplates relocating there.
Thanks. Well, it sounds great. Congratulations on to everybody that helped get it through and get it done. Big project. Okay.
And that concludes the update on the performance measures for quarter 4.
Thank you, Eric. So next item on our agenda is consideration approval to proceed with CCBHC demonstration program extension. So Janice is going to give us an update on the twists and turns of this program.
Just hot off the press yesterday.
Okay.
Oh, good, thank you.
Material, and I only have one for you to share.
So this agenda item has to do with the CCBHC, which is the community certified clinic that we started 3 years ago, and some changes at the state level that we're trying to work with and trying to respond to. So.
Okay, good morning, Commissioners. Janice Garceau, Deputy Director of Deschutes County Behavioral Health. And the agenda item for today is asking for your consideration to enter into an agreement and your approval to enter into an agreement and proceed with an agreement with OHA, the Oregon Health Authority, to participate in the continuation of the original Certified Community Behavioral Health Demonstration Grant project. And that involves agreeing to accept a reduction in certain identified service element dollars from the state to become our match to the federal dollars that are available through the federal extension of the grant. We've identified the service elements where we think we have latitude and where we think it makes sense clinically and service-wise to accept a reduction. We have a pretty good sense of what our amount would be for the 6-month period that's being proposed, and have a good sense at this point that OHA is willing to allow counties latitude to make individualized plans for their match arrangement. So in effect, this would allow us to leverage $3 roughly for every $1 we give up.
So we've had a number of updates on this, and this kind of filled out some more with your memo. Was good because it explained the details. What I still don't have a picture of in my head is, so we're basically partnering with OHA, the state of Oregon, to do the match that we need to get the federal money, correct?
Correct.
So how much are they coming up with, and how much are they asking us to come up with? What's this, because this is the real renegotiation with the state of Oregon.
So the state of Oregon's position is that currently in their approved budget, so they just went through their budget process, they don't have additional revenue to meet the match requirements for the federal grant. And
how much is that for 6 months?
For 6 months, they are indicating it's somewhere between $4 and $6 million.
So that's the total that Oregon and the programs like ours have to meet, is between 4 and 6.
That is what we've been given to understand.
And it looks like we're giving 700,000 of that as just one program. So is there's bigger programs than ours.
There's larger programs than ours. So they've roughly estimated, based on our receipts to them over the last 2 years plus a quarter, what our match is likely to be. Our match, in fact, will be lower because we are an expansion grant site. So we have this additional grant from SAMHSA, which means that we pull some of our claims data out of what we submit to the state. So last quarter, what we received in prospective payment was lower than what we had historically. So our match then, in effect, would likely be lower as well, probably closer to $650,000 for the 2-month period.
But your memo, you said it's 782.
That's what they identified, and they needed us to be able to say that we could come up with that if we had to.
So my point is, if we're only talking about 4 and 6 million, and even if it's 600, we're giving a tenth of it maybe, or, so when it's all done, is the state gonna do any of it? I mean, if you've got 3 or 4 other big ones, we could easily be to 3 million between the big ones, and then it's only 4, so I guess I don't see us really joining with them. They're just saying, how much money are they actually contributing is what I want to know.
I
Because
don't know. I believe what I
couldn't
heard.
we ask? I mean, I guess that's my point, that,
Well, I think so I have 2 answers to that question. I think we should always ask them what they are putting in for counties that are not able to come up with match, and I think they are intending to put some dollars in. I don't know that ultimately, we stand to lose either way if we don't participate. They're giving us an opportunity to let go of some dollars.
no,
in
I get
exchange
that.
for more.
I get that we stand to lose. But
Yeah.
this is a federal program where the state is supposed to match so the
Correct.
counties can benefit. And
That's correct.
we're part of the state of Oregon. Our county is about 5% of the state of Oregon. It sounds like we're probably, paying into this match more than 5%, which is really not right with the state, in my view, that we shouldn't be. 5% of 6 million would be what? 300,000, I think. So we're paying double that, it sounds like, to just get this federal money. And I guess I'm just talking about this negotiation with the state. I don't really buy that they don't have the money. I think they're just saying, if you guys want it, you need to pay for it. And that's been my concern with the CCBHC in the long run, when people in the middle quit paying, or the federal government. But this wasn't a county program. This was a federal program with the state's participation.
So, just a couple of clarifications. The amount that, our overall amount in terms of the overall match amount is just basically a percentage of our overall claims that we submitted. So it's not necessarily going to correlate to what percentage of the population of the state we are. It really correlates to what percentage of the overall amount that was submitted we represent. So what did we in effect draw down as match commitment for the state by virtue of what we submitted?
Okay, so let's say they said we needed 782. You think we're going to do it for 600, but
650.
So 782 is over 10% of the 4 to 6 million that the state's coming up with. So that could be true, but it sounds like they're not really coming up with any money, and so I guess.
Well, it is in effect the state's money. It's service element dollars that come from state general funds that are passed through to us to provide services under the requirements of those service elements. And they're saying that that is one place where they can find the revenue in this short window of time while they're trying to create a longer-term plan for the biennium to stay involved in this project. So it was a way for OHA, and I'm a little uncomfortable with speaking for OHA because I think they should probably maybe answer some of these questions at some point, and we've certainly asked them as well, Commissioner, but my belief is that it was OHA's opportunity to solve a budget constraint that they had currently, understanding that this may not be, and certainly is not the way to fund this long-term from county perspectives. This is a way for us to continue to participate and not lose federal dollars for the short term.
Yeah, I get that. I just think if we're going to keep going on with this, we ought to be looking at, there's some big counties that have a lot of people in them whose legislators do run the state of Oregon, and it seems like somebody's in the health department, OHA or whatever, in Salem is deciding we don't have the money. Well, they have billions of dollars, so this 4 to 6 million's change. And so it just seems like there ought to be some organized way if we're going to keep it as a state program, because otherwise you're giving up more and more to pay for it, and I guess that's a sliding backwards in the idea. So I guess maybe it's the next round. I don't want to really alter what your course is if it works, because it sounds like you can do it. But anyway, just my thought.
Well, and Commissioner, I
Closer to
I
decision.
agree that is a next round. I mean, this is not an ideal model for funding this project. And we would hope that when this is back in front of the legislature in the short session, there's a conversation that offers more vision for how to fund this program going
But
forward.
it sounds like we need to have legislators arguing, bringing this up. That's what's missing here, because as we worked with legislature last time, we learned that the legislators set these budgets, and so anyway, yeah.
Yeah, the Legislative Fiscal Office is
Are they
probably the
meeting
place
with the
to.
emergency legislators, that group of people? Is Patrick Allen going to go and talk to them about additional funding?
I'm not certain.
Because
We've-
it's $80 million from the federal government for the state of Oregon this next year if it is approved this fall. I mean, it's huge money for mental health,
So the request that we've made, Commissioner, to the Oregon Health Authority, to Patrick Allen and to Steve Allen, not related, is that they do advocate for this program with the Emergency Board, and that they do advocate for this program with the Legislative Fiscal Office and in the short session. And whether or not OHA is committed to doing that is going to depend in some part on their analysis of both the cost and the outcomes of the program. And they've informed us that they're still in that process, and we're trying to cooperate with them and providing information to them so that they can determine, was this worth it? And is this something we can sustain going forward in terms of cost? So we're doing everything we can to provide them with that information, to participate with them in that conversation.
And they're having a meeting tomorrow afternoon.
They're having a meeting tomorrow afternoon about these specific proposals, and
When I met with him, he said cost containment.
yes,
He said it was huge, the cost. And, Oregon is only, one of 8 states that is even getting this federal funding. So they know they have to work through this.
yes,
But I know they have to worry about their costs. So.
yes, they do have to worry about their costs. It's legitimate concern.
I know you mentioned the behavioral health parity with physical health, so that's kind of the big picture here. And I do support negotiating and kind of committing with the state to proceed here, especially in this next 6 months. Really looking for those outcomes. Are we reducing, societal problems, behavioral health problems, family issues, addictions, the whole big picture, mental health specifically. So, yeah, it's time to keep going, but it's a shame that the state's not real clear on what they want to do.
I do believe they're getting clearer.
What's that?
I believe they're getting clearer.
Yeah, they're getting
We certainly
clearer.
know that
Good.
communities think these programs are very important,
good.
and that there's been a lot of advocacy.
Wonderful.
And thanks for the map yesterday. That was really helpful to kind of get a picture of where they were, because 7 of them are in what we consider kind of similar areas. I mean, the
Right.
southern state, eastern Oregon. So
that's kind of consensus on moving forward. Do you want to have specific approval of your proposal as the August 22nd letter? Is that kind of more
Yes.
formal? Or?
Yes, sir, that's
Okay.
what I'm requesting.
So yeah, I'll move approval to proceed with the CCBHC demonstration program extension match proposal.
And I'll second that.
Okay, further discussion? Thanks for being so patient getting through this. It's complicated, we know. Commissioner DeBonne?
Yes.
Commissioner Dare?
Yes.
Chair votes yes.
Thank you, Commissioners, very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Janice.
Yep.
Okay, next item is the Planning Division Work Plan Update.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, for the record, and members of the commission, for the record, Peter Gutowski, Deschutes County Planning, and I'm joined with Nick Lelak, the Community Development Director. The Planning Division wants to be responsive to the board, and acknowledging that we, over this fall, will have some emerging capacity. For the audience, staff's presented a memorandum to the board that outlines in a table 1, our ongoing projects. And there's 8 that are in process, a 9th that just awaits kind of better clarification or direction from the board. So in light of those projects, nonetheless, there will be opportunities to take on additional responsibilities this fall. And staff has listed 3 that we believe would be worthwhile, subject to board approval, to undertake. 2 of them really relate to housekeeping and legislative amendments. The first pertains to 2 bills. One addressing the extension of non-farm dwelling or farm dwelling or forest land types of dwellings, the extensions that can be applied once they receive approval. We need to amend our procedures code to be consistent with state law. And then there's also provision that addresses for those jurisdictions that have schools that may be non-conforming, their ability to expand. Both those bills came into effect this summer. And so we just want to be mindful of amending our codes to address these two new provisions in state law. So that's kind of 1A. 1B is every year after, whether it's a short or long session with the legislature, staff always wants to work with the board to update our code. In years past, the board has taken advantage of or has directed staff to amend its code when state law changes that allow new uses to be permissible in rural parts of our county. Of course, state law can be quite restrictive, and so when they loosen the reins, the board certainly wants to evaluate those and give us direction. Some of those provisions, as listed on page 2, are permissive, which means the board can choose to take advantage of those opportunities. Likewise, there's no obligation to do so. And certainly, we're not asking for the board to decide today. It's just staff's provided a list of those bills that come into effect on the new year in 2020. And so, again, something that we can, with the board's direction, we can undertake this fall to vet those amendments. And any housekeeping amendments, just to clarify our own county code and get that to the board in time for the new year. And then the third item that we thought would be worthwhile to undertake is to, and this is coming right out of our work plan for this fiscal year, is a housing strategy committee that would have representation from the board and from the Planning Commission and other specialists to really look at our regional housing issues. And so, again, we could work with the board to develop a work plan and whatnot, but this has certainly been a topic of great interest and one that we could begin coordinating and initiating this fall if the board thought the opportunity was right. So I don't know if you want to offer any other perspectives or comments.
Thank you, Peter. As you've already introduced me, Nick Lelak. It's just if the board has different priorities and some of those that Peter just summarized and have outlined in the first couple of pages, certainly the table 2 has other projects that we could initiate if the board has other priorities.
That's at the very back of it.
Yeah.
Those are some other ones we've talked about, but we haven't done anything with.
Correct. We've non-initiated projects that are identified on our work plan, but just because of our resource limitations are on the back burner.
So really, you're saying we have 7 options. We got the 3 laid out, and then 4 more back here. But so don't we? Like item A on the merging projects, isn't that something I don't know how many properties that actually affects, but aren't we required to do things that are legislative or not? We could put it off to next year and.
For the 2 House bills, Mr. Chairman, which came into effect in June 17th and 20th respectively, I believe these are in effect today, so we're already, when it comes to, we're receiving extensions for resource dwellings, we're already having to write those extensions, which is ministerial. It's not a land use decision per se, but we're having to recognize these provisions in state law. So whether the board wants us to initiate these now or later, we have to honor those provisions in state law. No one is approaching us in terms of having a non-conforming site or location with an existing school, but and just anecdotally talking to staff, there may be a school that exists that could utilize this provision. Again, they haven't approached us, but just wanted to bring it to your attention that these are the two bills that had an effective date instead of being January 1st of 2020 or June of 2019.
So my feeling, just out of the gate, is that I really would like to do item C, the Housing Strategy Committee. I mean, I think we need to do it, and I'd love to get that going with all the variety of housing we can discuss with those other reports from other counties. It's something we can work with other commissioners on, as we've talked about. So that seemed, to me, that would be the number one of the three on the first group. Some of these other ones are interesting. The child care or amendments, what are your thoughts? Which ones are your
So I'm
priorities?
seeing some clarity, kind of two paths, this housing discussion. Let's talk about what could we prepare, what could we analyze in Deschutes County, and maybe prepare for the legislature, if there were some changes, how could they be implemented? Because I remember the Senate Bill 88, if there was accessory dwelling units allowed to be evaluated in our county, I think it was 2 or 2.5 acre minimums. We could do some of those evaluations in preparation for what if, so that's that scenario. And then, as I say, the second branch here with resources, knowing that a few of these projects stopped, is put together that housekeeping package, and that can be the resource balance, in the next 6 months, or, start a project and just put as much as you want or think is appropriate into a housekeeping amendment project. And then, that can keep you busy, because there's plenty of work to be done there. So I just kind of see a two-pronged approach.
Yeah. Okay. What's your thoughts, Commissioner Dare?
Your department can be extremely busy, can it? And are we considered Eastern Oregon on that House Bill 2435, the one about guest ranches being sunsetted?
Oh, with
Are we in that?
Yes.
We are. We are considered Eastern by that. Okay. All right. Because that's an interesting idea. I know we were looking at, I believe the Coles were putting up some kind of a ranch out of Sisters.
Oh, yeah, the old Patterson Ranch. Yeah.
Patterson Ranch. So that's something that I hadn't seen for a while. But no, and of course, we keep hearing about childcare, and what is it the county can do to help with childcare? Honestly and truly, if you have children, this is a desert of childcare, and if it's something, if we need a group of people to work on it, but somebody's got to step up and make a greater impact for that. And I just feel like
You're like farm deferral, and we can have no property taxes on child care homes.
why not? Well, I don't know. Actually, the Sisters firemen said they really wanted some help because they're out of volunteers, remember? And they were asking for a break on their property tax bill. So, whatever. They just need to get some more volunteers out there. And I was also happy to see that the Terrebonne sewer feasibility was on your work schedule. So, thank you.
Tom, do you have any thoughts?
No, Commissioners. I think CDD is doing what they've always done, making sure that their efforts match and align with your priorities. So I think it's your policy call in this case.
Commissioners, I would just suggest if you are interested in those three projects that we mentioned, as well as the child care text amendments, I think we could incorporate that as well into the fall. That's fairly straightforward, and given the front page of today's paper with what Redmond's doing, and we've been talking about it now for over a year, I'm certain that we could accommodate that as well, if that's your priority.
That sounds good to me.
Yeah.
So you do too.
Thank you very much, kind of
Yep.
setting direction to it a little bit. And then I understand it's just kind of a resource, how much throughput is available, and what can we get done in the next timing period.
Yeah, and I'd like to get together next week and talk about the Housing Strategy Committee, because I just think we need to get going with the things that are coming up this fall, the next legislature, et cetera, so.
We have to be ahead for, Senate Bill 88, that we were not successful. That one, I know, Nick, you worked so hard on it, and we've got to become successful.
Well, one thing I learned this weekend was that, so senators will have one bill in the session, and House members will have two bills. So, there's not very many bills going to come out of Deschutes County that we can really, it would be a matter of getting somebody to support one of those, because I brought up the judge bill, and so somebody said, well, you need somebody to, support it, but you only have one bill, so that has to become a real priority. It's the same here. Okay, good. Is that enough direction?
Very good, thank you very much.
Good, thanks. All right, that brings us to item number 8. Look at that, we're pretty close. No.
No. An hour.
No, we're pretty close. No.
No, it said 11:50.
11:50, and it's 11:55. We're within 5 minutes. Amazing. And I think that was the unexpected citizen input, so we're doing really well. And if any of you are here for this next matter, want to come up closer, we've opened up some seats with all our staff people, so feel free to come up and sit so you can hear us better if you want. We deliberate this, so, yeah. And if you can't hear us, let us know. We're all on the microphones here, but we don't really know whether you can hear in the back or not, so. All right. Izzy?
Good morning, Commissioners. For the record, my name is Izzy Liu, Deschutes County Planning Division. Today we are here having deliberations for a proposed marijuana production facility located at 60148 Sterling Drive. A public hearing was held on June 26th, and at the applicant's request, the board granted a continuance. The continued hearing took place on July 24th, and numerous comments were received during the hearing as well as during the open record period that followed. Staff has identified these topics in the staff memo as well as the decision matrix. All the topics that are listed under the green section on the matrix are topics that address the approval criteria. Topic issues that were identified under the yellow section may or may not address the approval criteria, and all items listed under the red section were not related to the approval criteria. After today's deliberation, staff will write up a draft finding based on the board's call today. This decision will be presented at a future work session, and staff does recommend that the board decision include alternate findings similar to staff's decision. Staff finds that the applicant and the appellant both address the current version of the code, 18.116.330. And the alternate findings, just in the event that the new regulations fail to become acknowledged, then we include that in the findings. At this point, that's the end of the brief overview. I'm happy to answer any questions or begin going through the matrix.
Why don't we just start going through it? I will disclose that I drove through there and have visited this, this scene or, the neighborhood, so I had a better sense from the maps where everything was. So that was helpful, I think.
Okay, so for the first topic, it was in regards to the separation distance from the Youth Activity Center. So as you can see in the sections here, the comments in opposition as well as the new information that was provided, it involved a map that identified the different amenities on Sundance Meadows Ranch, which the appellant is claiming as part of the Youth Activity Center. They've included ages in terms of the children and just the amount of children and frequency on site. The comments and support, the applicant during the open record period essentially submitted the draft minutes from the Marijuana Advisory Committee with the intent to just give some legislative background in terms of the Youth Activity Center and the separation distance and what was intended there. So at this point, deciding whether or not those amenities and the circumstance that the youth, Sundance Meadows Ranch, whether or not that's a youth activity center.
Excuse me, can I ask a question? Are you with the county or are you?
Yeah.
Are you with the
She's.
I'm staff with the Deschutes County Planning Division.
Okay, thank you. We can't hear back here very well.
You can't hear her speaking. Okay. So a little bit of background. We've got a matrix basically that's set up to help us look at these decisions, and it kind of summarizes the issues raised by the opponents to the grow, the proponent, the applicant, their comments, and then what are board decision points. And that's what she's really introducing is, and so the first topic was the issue of the Youth Activity Center. This is not everything we've got. We got a whole packet of everything that's been turned in prior to the, or after the hearing, and then we've got our whole, binder here of everything we got with the hearing. So, so we have a lot of information, but this is our time to just go through the main key decision points, and that's where we are today. So
This
you wanna-
matrix is about 2 or 3 pages into the staff memo published for this meeting too, so it was available. I see there's an iPad out here. I mean, it was available, published a week ago.
So do
And there-
either of you want to start a discussion on the Youth Activity Center issue?
Sure. So the question is this applicant co-located, or is there separation from a youth activity center? So it's the definition of a youth activity center in our code. The words aren't defined well. A point of clarity for myself, I'm thinking, what words would I put around the definition of a youth activity center so I could have a relative guidance about, the comments in opposition and support to this application. Some of the words that I came up recently is a club, referring to Boys and Girls Club, which is a company or a service, a nonprofit or a private company, where someone takes responsibility for someone else's youth, as in you're dropping somebody off at that youth activity center. And that's how I had come to the conclusion that a 4-H activity, and so we may see this differently, but a 4-H activity is a 4-H club that's at somebody's property, which is next to somebody else's property. It's not a business. It's kind of that club that the mom and dad and the youth are involved in. It isn't a place to transfer responsibility of the youth. And this application is, wow, I see the passion and I understand what's going on here. I don't conclude that the Youth Activity Center is, the definition is violated by this application. This is a farm parcel next to another parcel that has gone from probably a EFU to its current designation, which is that nonprofit. So as I say, I don't think of this as a youth activity center next door.
Commissioner Dare?
I happen to disagree. I feel that the fact that the pool area is right in the middle of the horseshoe, and when children go to the pool, they must be accompanied by their parents or another responsible adult. And so I feel like everything within the 1,320-foot radius on Exhibit 5, page 4 of 9, shows that the barn and corral, they have a couple teenagers that run the program. Of that program, they're riding out all over everywhere. They've got their little golf thing. Part of their fishing pond is all within the 1,320 feet. And you know that this place has got to have children all summer long outside having a good time. So I really do feel like it is an activity center for kids. There's a park, the fishing pond, they have a little golf course, they have a BMX track, they have a remote control, and then most significantly is the fact that the pool and the court recreation area are within the horseshoe, very close to the location where the facility will be established.
Okay. So, one thing I was thinking about is that as we were coming to deliberation on this is a good example of the chaos that the rules have created in our county, that we have these EFU parcels right next to major residential parcels, and a lot of our hearings have been over that. And so it kind of reaffirms my feeling that the opt-out option so that we actually have a vote is important, because it ends up in every neighborhood can have that has housing, can have really what's been Oregon calls a farming activity next door, and what are the regulations on. So I felt good about that decision, and this kind of reaffirms it. The second comment I had is I thought it was really helpful that Mr. Hughes, I don't know if he's here today, actually went back and got the minutes, figured out the minutes about the original discussions. I thought that was interesting to read. But I will note that was a committee that had talked about licensed youth activity centers. If that word had been kept in there, then that would give us some direction. When that word's not in there, to me it says, well, then it's just whatever really we define a youth activity center. It was left undefined. My basic philosophy about youth activity centers is, well, if there's a social reason or good that we're pursuing by not having marijuana production within 1,000 feet of a school, a daycare, or what have you, where there's lots of children, I really look at the primary test for the 1,000 feet rule is there a gathering place for children within the 1,000 feet or within the 1,300 feet. And I agree with what Commissioner Adair is saying in a variety of ways. The biggest one was the swimming pool itself. I know that because it's right there, as she described in the horseshoe, so it's very close. So if there's a reason which was set up in policy to have that 1,000, this seems to show that. I also want staff to recognize that when we use the word organized, supervised, and extracurricular, that to me kind of pertain to when you have a neighbor that runs a 4-H or a neighbor that has a riding rink or whatever, or riding activities. They're organized, they're supervised, they're extracurricular, I guess. But this is, to me, the swimming pool is as clear a definition to me of a activity center for youth as anything, because kids are going to use it. I mean, and we saw pictures of that. So the wider issue that was raised by the applicants, which was we really got more in the hearing and after about all the other activities and whether the whole Sundance Meadows Ranch totally is youth activity. I'm not as clear about that. But I can get to the decision just for the swimming pool. I do think there's lots of youth activities going on within 1,000 feet of this grow, but they kind of probably come in and out of the 1,000-foot boundary. So and I don't know how many were actually. I can't recite for myself, but if there's other specific youth activity places that were in the 1,000, I know there's a map in here that showed that, but I don't know if that's what you're referring to, Commissioner Adair.
Tab 130, 131, something like that.
Was it in the last brief
It's in
too?
tab 134, actually.
In the book?
Yes.
Okay. But I think it was here
It's
too,
here
wasn't
too.
it?
Yeah, it's here too. I just pulled it out of that
Yeah.
because.
So to me, the goal of that provision is there, and so I do feel it's in the way we've interpreted it, it's consistent with that. So
Okay, just to clarify, I'm hearing Commissioner Commissioner Henderson and Commissioner Adair. Yes, the proposal does not comply, does not comply with the separation distance requirements because it does constitute a youth activity center. At this point, would you like to continue going through the criteria, the rest of the topic issues, knowing that we have essentially a no, this is not meeting one of the requirements, this is denied essentially. So I purposely put it at the top because I knew this would be the main issue item here. But we could certainly go through the rest of the topics through the matrix.
Legal would suggest that, at least for the board's consideration, in light of the opt-out and the pending repeal of the marijuana text amendment, the second reading in a week, that there really is no reason to proceed, and it would be more of an advisory opinion at that point, and would suggest that if the board's prepared to have a vote on the youth activity center issue right now, have a 2-to-1, there's no benefit or reason to go forward at this point.
the only question I had was if this were what happens if it's reversed on appeal, or remand, or are you expecting it would get remanded? I actually think we're probably under the old rules, aren't we?
Well,
We've withdrawn, or we're withdrawing of the new rules, or what?
Yeah, as Izzy indicated, we'll make findings specific to both the original marijuana regulations and the amended, the ones that have been amended that are potentially going to be repealed here in a week or so. But yeah, to the extent that there would be any adverse action at LUBA, one would expect that to be a remand on the issue. I think the board's made pretty substantial findings on the other remaining issues in previous decisions. And ideally, those would be entitled to some level of deference at LUBA. See, Adam's sat at the table. He may have some thoughts on that as well.
Adam Smith, Assistant Legal Counsel. It's debatable. It's the consequences, withdrawing the consequences of the withdrawal and what that meant with the pending regulations is an unanswered question, which is why, at least with this one application, we've always maintained or staff's administrative decision had what I describe as dueling findings on addressing both code provisions. It's the same. I would recommend we do the same with the board's decision. I think it's noteworthy that the applicant in this case, in their final legal argument, references 1,320 separation distance, which comes from the new regulations, thereby implicitly conceding that the new regulations are the ones that are applicable to this application. I think the goalpost rules certainly suggest that those regulations, they were legally adopted and in place for a period of time, and so those are likely the ones that are applicable to this provision. But just to the definition of youth activity center is the dispositive issue. The 1,000 versus 1,320 feet is not, and so it should be pretty straightforward to write a decision that addresses both circumstances in case LUBA thinks otherwise.
I'll also note that I know the opponent's attorney had argued the case about the broader issue of the applicant provided no substantial analysis of land use statutes and statewide land use planning goals that apply. We've heard that before. We haven't really ruled on that at this point. It's probably a broader topic if we're going forward. And then for anybody that's here, there's quite a list of things that we don't consider because under the rules that we're aware of all of them. We've heard a lot of them. We may even feel strongly that those are factors, but those have to do with things beyond really the scope of our regulation. So at this point, okay, what's that? Do we need to take a vote now then, or is it?
I think it'd be advisable since it is dispositive on the appeal.
Okay. So what would the form of the vote be?
I think it would be a motion, ideally, I suspect, by Commissioner Dare to deny the application on the basis of there's a youth activity center that's within both the 1,000 and the 1,300.
Prohibited distances. Okay. So do you feel comfortable making that motion?
Yes. I move that we disallow the, is it NIMSO, marijuana production facility? And is there a number here? No.
Well, regarding file, you could say regarding file number.
Excuse me, regarding file number 247-19-000431-A.
Okay. And the chair will second that. Further discussion?
So written decision will follow from this vote, is
right.
Just for everybody to understand.
Okay, Commissioner Dare?
Yes.
Commissioner DeBonne?
No.
And chair votes yes. So that concludes the deliberations for today. As Commissioner DeBonne said, there'll be a written decision that will actually have the findings in it that will explain the criteria or try to articulate that as well as possible. We will get a draft of that. We may alter the wording or whatever is what we've done in the past, and then that'll be finalized. And so Thank you. Yep. So we've got, let's see. So are we gonna, we've got some things this afternoon then, or?
We've got a executive session at 2:30. We have Jeff Hines coming in at 3 to talk about fair.
Okay.
We've got Will and Sarah.
Oh, okay, like at 4? What?
As part of the day, we'll sit.
So we'll adjourn the meeting for, or let's see. We'll recess the meeting for now to be continued later this afternoon at 3 o'clock upstairs. Yeah.